Your name doesn't disappear the first time someone misgenders you. What disappears first is your certainty. Not because the person hated you, not because they wanted to hurt you, but because they smiled while doing it. They apologized. They insisted they respected you. Then, a few minutes later, they did it again. That is what makes this experience so psychologically confusing. Cruelty is easier to understand than kindness that keeps cutting you in the same place. When someone openly rejects your identity, your mind immediately recognizes the threat. When someone claims to support you while repeatedly denying a part of who you are, your brain struggles to decide whether it's experiencing acceptance or rejection. That uncertainty becomes its own emotional wound. And over time, many transgender and non-binary people stop asking whether they are being seen. They start asking whether they are allowed to expect to be. That question quietly reshapes relationships, confidence, and even the way someone speaks about themselves. Because being misgendered by people who openly dislike you is painful. Being misgendered by people who insist they're on your side can feel disorienting. The contradiction is what lingers. Modern conversations often reduce misgendering to a mistake. A slip, an accident, something small. But the human nervous system doesn't measure emotional experiences only by intention. It measures them by repetition, by unpredictability, by whether safety feels consistent. Imagine constantly entering rooms where you never know whether you'll be recognized correctly. Every introduction becomes a calculation. Every conversation begins with silent anticipation. Will this person remember? Will I have to correct them? Will correcting them make me seem difficult? That mental preparation is exhausting long before a single word is spoken. People often imagine emotional survival as dramatic. In reality, it usually looks ordinary. Speaking a little less, laughing something off, pretending it didn't matter, changing the subject, shrinking your reaction before anyone asks you to, quietly, without realizing it. Because once your identity repeatedly becomes a social inconvenience, your emotions often begin treating your own existence like one too. This is where emotional masking begins. Not because someone wants to deceive others, because constant correction is expensive. Every correction asks for emotional energy. Every explanation risks awkward silence. Every reminder creates the possibility that someone secretly thinks you're asking for too much. Eventually, silence becomes easier than honesty. Not healthier, just easier. There is a strange contradiction inside modern acceptance. Many people have learned the language of inclusion. Far fewer have learned the habit of attention. They know what respect sounds like. They haven't always learned what consistency feels like. That gap matters, because identity isn't validated through declarations. It's validated through repeated recognition. People remember names because they matter. They remember relationships because they matter. They remember birthdays because they matter. So when your identity repeatedly becomes the thing everyone forgets, your mind starts asking a dangerous question. What if I don't matter enough to remember? That thought rarely arrives dramatically. It arrives quietly, follows you home. It sits beside you after conversations that everyone else has already forgotten. They move on. You replay every sentence. Searching. Did they mean it? Did they forget? Should I have corrected them? Would correcting them have changed anything? The conversation ends. The investigation doesn't. Modern psychology often talks about hypervigilance after trauma. But emotional hypervigilance isn't always created by catastrophic events. Sometimes it's built through hundreds of tiny moments that individually seem insignificant. Together, they teach your nervous system that certainty isn't safe. So you begin scanning constantly, not just words, faces, pauses, tone, facial expressions after someone corrects themselves, the hesitation before saying your pronouns, the glance toward another person for confirmation. Tiny signals become emotional evidence. Your brain becomes an investigator, not because it enjoys overthinking, because uncertainty became familiar. This changes relationships in ways few people notice. You become less focused on whether someone likes you, more focused on whether they truly see you. Those are not the same thing. Someone can enjoy your company while still repeatedly failing to recognize the identity you worked so hard to live honestly. Affection without recognition creates a unique loneliness, because closeness feels incomplete. You're physically present, emotionally partial, visible, yet somehow still translated incorrectly. There is another contradiction hiding underneath this experience. People often say intention matters, and intention does matter. It shapes character. But impact shapes memory. Your nervous system remembers what happened, not only why it happened. This is why repeated accidental harm can still produce real emotional consequences. Not because the other person is evil, because your body cannot permanently relax inside inconsistency. Safety requires predictability. Recognition requires repetition. Without those things, trust slowly becomes conditional. Modern social life makes this even more complicated. We're constantly told to perform authenticity. Share your truth. Express yourself. Be visible. But visibility alone has never guaranteed understanding. The internet rewards being noticed. It does not guarantee being known. A profile can announce your identity in a single sentence. That doesn't mean people emotionally integrate it. There is a difference between reading information and reorganizing your perception of another human being. One takes seconds. The other requires attention. Attention has become increasingly scarce. We scroll through identities almost as quickly as we scroll through headlines. Everything competes for recognition, including people, especially people. That changes relationships more than we realize, because recognition is becoming transactional. Quick, efficient, convenient. Real understanding isn't convenient. It asks something uncomfortable. Presence. And presence cannot be automated, cannot be outsourced to good intentions. It has to be practiced. That is why being misgendered by good people often creates deeper confusion than open hostility. Hostility announces itself. Inconsistency disguises itself as kindness. Your mind keeps searching for an explanation that allows both realities to exist at once. They care about me. They keep hurting me. Both can feel true. Holding both truths at the same time is emotionally exhausting. Eventually, many people stop expecting consistency altogether. They begin adapting instead, introducing themselves differently depending on the room, preparing multiple emotional versions of themselves, correcting one group, staying silent with another, smiling through conversations that quietly fracture them. Not because they've accepted being unseen, because they've grown tired of negotiating the basic conditions of being recognized. And that fatigue changes more than confidence. It changes identity itself. Not by erasing who you are, but by teaching you to ration how much of yourself feels safe to reveal.